Welcome to Ecotopia, an environmental affairs program. Ecotopia looks at issues, ideas and inventions that will be shaping the way that we live in the future. In this week's episode, I'll be looking at carbon pricing. Adam visits the Hepburn Community Wind Farm, but right now, Jackson is almost seduced by the idea of an eco-swimming pool.
If you're anything like me, the idea of a landscaped garden is a bit preposterous. A bit extravagant perhaps. But if you did have a stack of cash and you're looking to do something good for the environment, you could do a lot worse than building a very special billabong. I'm here at the Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show and we're about to learn all about these billabongs. Gardens can be beautiful. Plato once said that nothing useless is truly beautiful. So how do we get the best of both worlds into our gardens? Traditional swimming pools and water features are popular choices for beautifying gardens. But landscape gardener and permaculture expert Philip Johnson thinks we can have these luxuries without interrupting nature's processes.
The underlying design principle is really working with nature, not against it. So working with your local conditions of your site, the available water that you can collect off your roof, and then create this amazing habitats and environment around that.
So what is the difference between a hard garden and a soft garden?
My big philosophy is this 80-20 principle, where we have 80% plants within our landscape and only 20% of hard surface, which might be deckings and gravels, but they're still all permeable. So not where it is now within our industry, where it's about 80% of hard landscape and only 20% of soft.
What kind of benefits are associated with a structure like this?
So what we've created here is something which I believe could be mimicked everywhere and around the world. So everyone plays their part in the big picture of cleaning water, slowing water that falls down on their property, that assists in flood mitigation, reduction of nutrient going into our waterways, and creating these beautiful water habitat corridors within a community.
Obviously, it's very beneficial to grow your own edible plants. This lowers the carbon cost of the food you eat and also helps you avoid pesticides and stay organic. But how do we make a garden that's edible, that's beautiful, and that saves water and encourages animals to move into your place?
The roof is your catchment. We've all got rainwater tanks that overflows, so you're slowing the movement of water off your own backyard. So that's replenishing. It goes down your stream into your little wetland or billabong or natural swimming pool, what we're now building. So it's chemical-free, saltless, dependent on natural filtration systems. And then that overflows and it goes down your storm water into your streams, through rain gardens possibly on the edge of roadsides. So it's cleaning the water as it goes on the journey to our rivers and then to Port Phillip Bay. It's so easy to do. Like seriously, I tell people at home, research and get your kids involved. Create a little billabong, and they're taught about this at school, and pass the word around because we've got to make a difference.
So there you have it. Gardens can be more than just a pretty thing out your back door. Maybe you don't have $10,000, but if you could just apply a few of these principles to your own backyard, you could make a huge difference.
Okay, now the folks here in beautiful Hepburn in regional Victoria are known as a pretty progressive bunch. It's a community with a strong interest in sustainability, and it's here that a group of friends got together to create a renewable energy project that would generate a significant proportion of local electricity needs. It's Hepburn Wind, and it's providing a model for other communities to follow. So Kate, this is very exciting. Introduce me to your two friends here.
Yes, this is Hepburn Wind, our two turbines, Gale and Gusto.
Gale and Gusto.
So cool because we had a competition among the primary school kids in the district, and Gale and Gusto was the winning entry.
And tell me, do they have their own personality?
Oh, indeed, yes, they're very much their own persons.
I gotta tell you, it's pretty cold here, but it's very windy, but that's good.
It is very
For
good.
a wind farm.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how the Hepburn Wind Project began.
Okay, in 2003 there was a particularly hostile public meeting about a wind farm proposed to the Clark Hill, and after that some of the Dalesford people who attended the meeting got together and said, hey, we know that there are perfectly good wind farms all over the world. We know that there are perfectly good community wind farms in places like Denmark. And over a period of time, about 15 people came together and they formed a formal group, and they came up with the idea of establishing a cooperative.
Let's go inside and talk a little bit about the co-op, because it's absolutely freezing out here. So Kate, Hepburn Wind is a cooperative.
Yes, Hepburn Wind is incorporated under the Victorian Cooperatives Act, and that was seen as particularly important because we're a community wind farm, a community asset, and we wanted to have that reflected in our legal status. And we're really proud because more than half of our members are from the local district, so it really is locally controlled.
It's a fantastic project, incredibly innovative, very practical is what I love about it.
It's wonderful to see that a community can take on a project which is complex and, for a community point of view, large, $14 million, and actually get it up and running successfully. And we're enormously proud of that, and the local community are very proud. Where you have communities of like mind and passion, it is possible to do all sorts of things.
So what is a cooperative? Well, it's a group of members getting together to achieve a common good. It's a little bit like a company. It can be incorporated and it can have shares, but unlike a company, it's not there to benefit shareholders, it's there to benefit members directly. And in this case, there's a financial benefit through dividends, but there's also the common good through the creation of emission-free energy. Okay, now it's time to get a little bit technical with Tracy. Tracy, we've met Gail and Gusto outside. Tell me, why 2 wind turbines?
When the community came together and decided they wanted to build a wind turbine, it was all scaled around the number of houses and the usage of electricity within Dalesford Hepburn area.
And how many homes does that service?
So the scale was based on 2,300 homes, and the turbines will generate annually around 12,200 megawatt hours.
Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm the least technical person in the world, but can you just give us a little bit of an idea about how the turbine actually works?
Yep. So what happens is that the wind is causing the blades to turn, and within the turbine you've got a gearbox and a generator. So essentially those mechanisms are being used to extract as much power as possible out of the turn of the blades. And then that goes down the base through the base of the turbine, underground into this building here, and then straight into the distribution network.
Have there been challenges along the way with the project? What have been the big challenges for you?
So probably the biggest challenge is the fundraising. So as a community, we've raised over $13 million for the 2 turbines. So that's a challenge. People are incredibly proud of this project. Being the CEO and being a member of the community, constantly people stop me and just say how excited and proud they are to have the turbines here.
Now, I've got to tell you, I am pretty impressed with Gail and Gusto. They are absolutely huge, but incredibly sleek and graceful. They're almost a bit majestic. And the fact that they produce enough clean green energy to power 2,000 plus homes a year, it's pretty amazing.
People of Ecotopia, your attention for the next few seconds. If it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. Let any man who reaches for the lever have his arm severed by a meat cleaver.
Hi there, I'm down at Williamstown in Victoria, which the Sea Shepherd hopes is going to be their future home for their ships, and we're about to board the Bridget Bardot and the Steve Irwin. Captain Lockie McLean's going to take me aboard and he's going to tell us a little about what they do and also why they do it. Okay, so I'm lucky enough to be joined here today by Captain Lockie McLean, who has been out on the dangerous high seas, out there at the front line of the anti-whaling campaign. So Lockie, thank you very much for joining us and showing us around the bridge at Bardo. Now tell me a little bit of the history first of all. How was the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society started?
Basically, our founder Paul Watson left Greenpeace in the late 70s, decided he wanted to do more direct action and concentrate on marine conservation, so he started up Sea Shepherd.
And tell me, why is it so important if we lose a species? I mean, a lot of people might not realise that, you know, what's the difference if we lose a shark or a whale here and there, or if we lose a species, you know, does it really matter?
Well, people don't realise, but just to illustrate the sharks, for example, 100 million sharks get finned each year. 90% of the sharks have been wiped out worldwide. This affects the food chain and affects our ecosystems, and we really depend on the oceans to survive.
Now tell me, that logo there, I don't think I would like to see that coming at me if I was in the middle of the ocean. Tell me, what is it meant to represent, and is it meant to be a bit frightening?
Well, yeah, the Dalai Lama describes it as compassionate wrath. So basically, it's intimidating.
Yes.
We are a non-violent organization, but we do use direct action, and we do sometimes use intimidation in order to protect marine environments and marine species.
I reckon it could be pretty risky out there. What are some of the dangers of being involved in the organisation overall?
Well, the first one is the weather. When we're down in Antarctica, we come across gales, ice, huge storms. Sometimes this vessel in particular has a hard time navigating through those waters.
Okay, we're up here. I'm with Lockie, where he spends a heap of his time when he's out at sea. This is the fly bridge that I'm in, correct?
That's correct.
And down there is the bridge. All right, I'm learning already. Now tell me, Lockie, we're on the bridge at Bardo. Where did she get her name from?
Brigitte Bardot got her name through the actress herself, the French actress who donated the funds necessary to purchase the ship.
Okay, exciting. Well, I'd like a ship named after me one day, hopefully.
Do you have $1 million?
Not quite, not yet. Where does the bridge at Bardo go from here?
Brigitte Bardot will be conducting a campaign in the South Pacific to protect against illegal shark finning operations.
Yeah.
And from there, she'll head to Antarctica next December.
And when you're out at sea, what will the bridge at Bardo be doing out there?
In the first instance, she'll be patrolling, seeking out illegal shark finning operations. Second thing, she could be possibly bringing in illegal long lines, setting sharks free. Obviously, the crew will be taking lots of video footage, documenting these illegal activities so that later on, those vessels can be prosecuted.
All right, and who are the culprits? Who's doing this?
A lot of Asian nations. Shark fin soup's very popular in Asia and Taiwan and China, and they have successfully been able to wipe out 90% of the global shark population just by finning the sharks, throwing the bodies back in the water. Small boats over there.
Okay.
And there's 3 of them on deck, and this crane is used to put them in the water. And what we do with these boats is, because the Steve Irwin's a bit slower than the Japanese harpoon ships, we use these small boats to close in the gap and generally annoy and deter the harpoon ships from whaling, basically. Yeah, very effective. They don't like it. No, they don't like it. We get right in front of them and we try to slow them down. If we can get the small boats in front of the bow of the harpoon ship, that will stop them from harpooning the whales. Japanese whalers down in Antarctica are on film. They know it. So using us, using our small boats will usually stop them from trying to harpoon the whales.
So here we are in the kitchen, where I'm told everything in here is vegan. So good to see that they're practicing what they preach. So Lockie, what a fantastic looking helicopter we've got here. How do you use that?
So this is a Hughes 500. It's an American helicopter. We use it in Antarctica mostly to spot the whaling fleet. So sometimes if we're not sure, we're looking at the radar screen, we think we might see a ship, we call the pilot and say, hey, would you mind going check that out? He flies over it. Oh, yes, it is a ship.
So now we've seen what they do and how they do it and what it's like to be on board. You too, don't forget, can help out. Visit their website, seashepherd.org, to find out how you can either become a volunteer, but of course how you can also make a much needed donation. seashepherd.org.
Unless you've been living on another planet, you will have
have noticed that Australia now has a carbon market. The federal government has put a price on carbon emissions entering the Aussie atmosphere. 500 of Australia's biggest polluters will have to pay the government for the carbon they emit. I'm at Melbourne's Queen Victoria Market to help explain what a carbon price and indeed a carbon market will mean for you. Here's how it works. Any company who has a facility that emits more than 25,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide will be forced to cough up $23 for every tonne of carbon dioxide they emit into the atmosphere. That's about 500 companies in Australia. I want you to imagine that this is a large power station. This represents the annual revenue that the power station makes. And this represents the amount of carbon dioxide they emit into the atmosphere. The bigger the pollution balloon, the more the company will have to pay. The government collects all the revenue from the 500 different polluters. So will this mean life is going to get more expensive for you and I? Well, it's obvious that the companies that are taxed will pass on this loss of profits onto their customers. If the businesses pass on 100% of their losses by increasing prices, everyone can expect to pay around an extra $10 a week for everyday living. $10 a week isn't a big deal to some of us, but to others, that's a significant increase to your living costs. So to make sure that we aren't all disadvantaged by the carbon price, the federal government has said that they are going to give about half of the carbon price revenue collected from the big polluters back to everyday Australians. The rest of the money will be shared between research and development in cleaner technologies, and some goes back to businesses to help them make the early steps to a cleaner future. Smart businesses will realise the opportunity to cut their emissions, therefore cutting their profit loss, and they'll be able to set more competitive prices for their customers. Importantly, there's going to be loads of new opportunities for green industries to develop. So, the carbon price is fundamentally a tax on the top big polluters in Australia. Yes, this will mean that some living costs will go up, but the money generated from the carbon price will be used to compensate households. It'll also be used to encourage energy efficiency, adjustments in industry, and significantly to promote cleaner technologies and business practices in Australia. The model is simple. If you pollute, you should compensate for the effect that your pollution has on all of us.
Well, firstly, I don't believe in utopias, but okay, Ecotopia. The reality is that there's a question mark over personal transport. If you want to ask me what my vision of the future is, then I see it built essentially around rail hubs, and electric vehicles will then be used for the shorter distances around those rail hubs. And in that respect, I think it's going to be a much better and brighter future and more sustainable.
Wouldn't you love to live more locally, grow your own food, get to know your neighbours, not have to drive far to work? Well, come on, let's go and meet Peter Driscoll, the co-founder of Transition Sydney. Come on, Seb.
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you. The Transition Town movement is an endeavour by communities all over the world to relocalise and become self-sufficient. So what is transition towning?
There's going to be pretty serious changes coming down the path, climate change and peak oil, and that communities need to get together and start working on planning on how to adapt to those rather than sit and wait for governments.
For transition groups around the world, this means localising their own food and energy production as well as water harvesting. It means doing it themselves. Why is transition towning essential in our community?
If we wait for governments to do it, it'll probably be too late, too little. If we wait for individuals to take individual action, it'll never be enough. And if we get together and work as communities, we just might do enough to avoid the worst of the climate change and peak oil. If we get off this seat that we're sitting on here, I can show you yet another one.
You want me to get off?
Yeah, let's stand up.
Alright.
So,
Whoa!
see everything should have more than one purpose. This is a worm farm in here.
Okay, so what's the first step someone can do to get involved?
If they are in Sydney, they should go to the Transition Sydney website. They'll find out where the groups are already in Sydney, and if not, they can send us an email and say, I want to start one. Our most active and biggest group is in Bondi.
If I wanted to see Bondi, who should I talk to?
Talk to Lance Lieber.
Okay, well Lance, here I come. Here we are in Bondi. We're heading down this lane to the community garden.
Do it too. So when her eyes rest on me, the eyes so burning.
Lance, what's your day job?
So I work as a fitness trainer.
Wow, you must be very busy. You do a lot of activities here with Transition Bondi as well. Tell me about Wednesdays.
So every Wednesday night what we do is have a local organic meal at the Chapel by the Sea, and we show a documentary and have a guest speaker. Some health professionals come and do $5 acupuncture before the meeting. We have lessons in cooking. We're using a lot of local organic produce that's in season, so we get a lot of exciting and different vegetables and things and different types of fruit, so we need to know what to do with all of that, and it's just much more fun that way when you have a community that you can do that kind of stuff with.
Awesome, well let's go and have a look at your stuff.
Cool.
Tightened up my screws. I put her in the lockhead when I had to choose. So when her eyes rest on me.
So why does this need to come under the umbrella of transition towns?
Well, the Transition Sydney Movement Association offers us auspicing, and we need that to apply for grants and to deal with local governments and things like that, as well as it gives a lot of support because we get to work with other local groups and network.
Since I've been involved, I've established my own garden at home, and I feel it brings the neighbours together, it brings the community together. I think it's also great for my son because he calls it, oh, are we going to the hippies again?
I just like gardening. I like, doing stuff. I like the people here, and just a nice place to be.
To get another perspective, I set off to meet Joe Forgus, Professor of Psychology at the University of New South Wales. So Joe, why is community important?
In order to understand why human beings need community, we really have to take an evolutionary biological perspective and start thinking about human beings as essentially part of the animal kingdom. Human beings are incredibly gregarious, we need each other's company and we like to cooperate. And the need to be with others, the need to relate to each other, the need to be in a community is a kind of natural tendency that has been adaptive in the past and it's still with us today.
Maybe you could get involved too. Those guys were inspiring and refreshing, but not as refreshing as this.
And that's all for this week, Ecotopians. If you'd like to comment on any of tonight's segments, please visit our website where all our videos are located online. In next week's episode, Nick meets Earthship legend Michael Reynolds. See you later.